And a question was asked. First of all, this class, like we say every time, it's in memory of Jared Ochen. And it was asked about when we stop to eat chometz, the day before, on the eve of Pesach.
The eve or the morning?
The morning, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Eve is a strange word. Erev Pesach means the day before Pesach. Like the
Right.
Monday during the day is
Day.
called Erev Pesach.
Right.
Eve of Pesach is not the right word maybe. But we will start, maybe we'll come from the searching of the chometz and we'll get to them.
It's amazing how we just had this book in front of us.
Just 12 months
just
ago.
12 months ago.
Yeah, time is flying. We know that. We search the chometz Sunday night. We'll start with this. As you see in the pictures, the mitzvah is to clean up the house from the chometz. You cannot have chometz on Pesach. Not only you're not allowed to eat chometz, you're not allowed to enjoy chometz. It means to have any benefit from chometz one way or another. Not only you're not allowed to benefit from chometz, you're not allowed to own chometz. It cannot be now for possession. Then there is a few things. First of all, we clean up the house of the chometz. Then we burn the chometz. Then the chometz that we own and we cannot get rid of, what do we do with it? We sell it. The moment I sell it to a non-Jew, then it's not my chometz. Then the non-Jew, even if he's in whoever he is in the world, legally and halachically has permission to come and to pick up, let's say if I have alcohol with chometz, he can come and pick up the alcohol and leave. There was a few years ago in Jerusalem, a few religious, very holy Jews decided that the selling of the chometz and leaving the chometz in the house is not good enough for them. They got a storage house, and they put everybody, the whole neighborhood bought their alcohol and their stuff, everything, and they filled it up, and they sold it on Arab. And lo and behold, the guy showed up Erev Pesach afternoon, when you're not allowed to eat chometz anymore, and he cleaned up the place, and nobody could tell him a word. Because the moment you tell him don't do it, it means you didn't sell the chometz really. If you didn't sell the chometz really, it means it's yours. Understand? It means to say, a sale, when is a sale considered a sale? When you in your mind, you really sold it. If in your mind you didn't really sold it, then it's not a kosher sale. That if you tell them something, are you taking it? Oh, that's yours. You disobeyed the law of owning chometz and Pesach. I read it in the newspaper. I liked it actually, the story. They deserve it. Why they deserve it? Because if Jewish people for thousands of years sell the chometz in their houses, don't be more righteous than all the rabbis in the Jewish world. Don't try to be smarter. And that's the reason. But halachically, the non-Jew can come and take, if he can walk into your house and take the chometz. And that's how we get, they said, the rabbi, everybody makes me an agent to sell the chometz. I make another rabbi. Eventually he sells the chometz to the goy. And the goy the non-Jew gives a deposit towards the chometz. And later, and this is the amount of the worth, and he gives 10,000, whatever it is, a deposit for the beginning of the deal. And after 10 days, he regrets. They come and tell him, we don't want the deal, and they buy it back, and they give him some money because they regret it on the deal, something like this. Then that's the few things that we do for him.
Do you have the forms already?
We have the forms upstairs, yes. You can
Sign it up?
After the
I'll
class,
take
you can
it.
sign it
Joe
up.
can sign it.
Joe can sign too, no problem. Now, what do you do Sunday night? Sunday night we have to take the custom is to take 10 pieces of bread, wrap them up, hide them in 10 corners in the house, and then take a candle and a feather, as you see in the picture, and go to search for the chometz. While I go with the candle and the feather, I look for the real chometz, not just for the 10 pieces that my kids were hiding. And we look under the couches, under this, and I have a whole crew with me because I'm too old to go and crawl under everything. And they really search for chometz, and usually you find here a little piece of something, a little, no matter how much you try to clean the chometz. Why we put the 10 pieces? Because you don't want that the blessing for searching of the chometz should be in vain. because you said a bracha for removing the chometz. There is no chometz. That to begin with, you put 10, and everything in Judaism is 10. Why is everything in Judaism in 10? No, what do you think? Why is a minyan 10? Why is everything 10?
Because God spoke in 10 words. Because
To remind us about the 10 Commandments. And to remind us about God created the world in 10 orders. Then we do everything in 10 to keep it in mind. 10 Commandments, everything is 10 in Judaism. And there's Kabbalistic explanation, and then we search for the chometz. Then what we say a blessing. That's the first thing that we say before we start to search for the chometz. We do it right at night. When you daven Ma'ariv, when it's getting dark, now it's getting dark. What time is getting dark now? 7:30?
Well, nightfall, 7, almost 8:01 last night.
8:01.
It was nightfall.
Okay, 8 o'clock, here you go. 8, then you daven Ma'ariv and you don't do anything else. Right away you have to, this is the first obligation that we have to search the chometz.
It's 8:10.
Thank you. Then
Tonight?
then what is it? Let's see what's written in the
No.
3
Agada.
stars.
3 stars?
Let's see what's written in the Agada, what we're supposed to do after we say the blessing. One is to search. We'll read the fine print. You want to read it?
One is to search by candlelight in all hidden places, even cracks in the floor. One is not to speak between the blessing and the beginning of the search, even concerning the search itself. Throughout the search, one should not speak about anything that is not relevant to the search. Members of the household should stand nearby to hear the blessing, with each one then searching his own place without speaking in between. Take heed to search first in the room nearest the place where the blessing was heard, but not to go to another room immediately after the blessing. After the search, one must be careful that the chametz retained to be eaten or to be burnt in the morning to be put in a safe place, so that it not be carried about and thereby crumbled and spread by children or rodents.
Okay. Then basically, now there is a story about the first Chabad Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Leadi, the Baal HaTanya. He came from the Maggid of Mezrich. He discovered Hasidus by his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich. After being by him for a long time, he came back home. He came home for Pesach. That's the Jewish way to come home. Pesach, you have to be with your family. He came home for Pesach and he searched the chometz a whole night. How many rooms he had in his house? 1 room. That was the whole house. That his disciple asked him, Rebbe, a whole 1 room, a whole night. What are you busy so much with? That he told them that chometz, what's chometz? Chometz and matzah represents 2 things. Chometz and matzah are made from the same thing, from flour and water. The only difference is that this is rising and this is not. Then rising of the chometz represents ego. It goes up. 2 things are rising: your ego and your anger. When you start to think about something, you get upset. You get even more upset. The more you think about it, you get all worked up. Then the same thing is ego. You're all talking about, I'm so important and I deserve and I own and I this. It goes worse and worse. Then the idea is, matzah represents humbleness, humility. A person has to be, the matzah is to remind him of his humbleness. Where chometz is just the opposite, arrogant. And before Pesach, he says you have to take the candle. The candle is the soul of man. Right? That's how Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of God is the soul of man. And with your own soul, you have to search the chometz. Where you have to search the chometz? In the cracks. But in every hole, in every dark spot in your heart, in your soul, you have to search for the chometz. Then this kind of searching of the chometz takes a whole night. That's why we're searching for the chometz all night. And after you finish the search of the chometz, you gather everything and you make an announcement. You want to read it? The last paragraph on this page?
All leaven and anything leavened is in my possession, which I have neither seen nor removed, and about which I am unaware, shall be considered nullified and ownerless as the dust of the earth.
That what he didn't mention before, one of the ways to search to get rid of the chometz, we talked about burning, selling, but there is one more way. Making it ownerless. It's called in Hebrew hefker. It's not yours. If it's not mine, I'm not allowed to own it. If it's not mine, if I say anybody can take it, that's okay. You see, things that I don't want to make ownerless, I'm selling. If I want to take my bread and put it outside and say anybody who wants can come, that's perfect. Even if it's in my house, if I can say it's not mine. The problem is if I don't want to get rid of it, if it's mine and I want to, then I sell it to the goy and I buy it later from the non-Jew a week later after Pesach. But this is what you do. Then the first step is to search the chometz and to clean up. Every chometz I'm not sure if it's there. I couldn't find it, but it might be mine, or I forgot about it, or I don't know where it is. I make it ownerless.
Isn't it a problem though? I mean, technically, I still have some sort of tether to it. I sell it to a Gentile,
Mm-hmm.
and I really believe I've sold it to him, but I know in the deep of my heart, a week later it's going to be mine again, because I'm going to buy it back.
Could be, but if you...
The ego could be such that...
Yeah, but the bottom line is legally, it's his, right? You can
Right.
come and take it.
True.
That's not yours. That's good enough. I think that Tzemach Tzedek used to make Avdallah after Pesach on a bottle of beer that he sold by the Chometz. To make a point that the sale was a real sale, and after Pesach. You see, if I owned Chometz during Pesach, I'm not allowed to enjoy it. I have to throw it away, I have to burn it. If by accident I had Chometz, I had a bakery, and the bakery was not sold for Pesach, I'm in big trouble. Huge trouble. There's a famous story about two Jews who had a alcohol factory, vodka, and they come Erev Pesach. He thought they were partners. He thought he sold. They're rushing into the shul. Right before the Seder, the Mariv, the service, they're running to the rabbi. They didn't sell the chometz. Today, when you're late, there is ways to do it. You sell it to somebody in California. It's a few hours earlier, and they can still buy it.
Yeah.
But the moment there is a certain time in the afternoon, the moment you're not allowed to eat chometz, you cannot even sell it. I think 12 o'clock, 12:30, whatever it is. Then the rabbi said, the alcohol that's in the barrels, that's also have to be poured out. That's chometz that was owned by a Jew. That's it. You cannot use it. The machinery, we'll talk about it after the holiday. We don't know. We have to figure out. Shine. Both of them sat down they went home, they sat down. Middle of the night was a fight between two neighbors, and one guy torched the neighbor's house on fire. It was right next door to the factory, to the alcohol factory, whatever it was called that. And it caught on fire. That one partner heard about that. He runs to the other partner, wakes him up. The whole business is on fire, the whole factory. I said, what? Oh, Baruch Hashem, he tells him. He says, are you Meshuggah? You are still dreaming? The whole business is gone. He tells him, when he was sit down to the first Seder, he said, I couldn't sit by the Seder. The idea that I'm owning chometz now drove me nuts. He couldn't live with it. That he decided, made a decision in his mind. My partner can do whatever he wants. From my point of view, this business is gone. I will never benefit from this business a cent, a ruble, because it's benefiting from chometz. On Pesach, I don't want to do with it. I'm a Jew, I don't want to have any chometz on Pesach, I don't want to. And then he said he felt much better, and he went to do the Seder. He says he didn't know that Hashem heard his prayer so fast. He didn't put him in a test later to make it to live up to his promise. That from his point of view, it was gone. That's what he do the night before. On Monday morning this year, we will burn the chometz. We will bring it here. We'll have 10 o'clock a time for burning the chometz, and we will recite. After we recite the burning, we have to say this again. We want to read it, Mark.
All leaven, anything leavened that is in my possession, whether I have seen it or not, whether I have observed it or not, whether I have moved it or not, shall be considered nullified and ownerless as the dust of the earth. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll be honorless like the dust of the. This time, yesterday we said, the night before we say, all the chometz that I don't know about. Here the chometz that I know and I don't know, that I saw and I don't, so everything should be honorless. If it's still belong to me, it's honorless, because it's already now the time, soon I will not be able to sell it, nothing. As long as it's in my possession, I can make it ownerless. I can sell it. After the time you're not allowed to use chometz, to eat chometz, you cannot sell it. You cannot. The only thing you can do is to burn it, to get rid of it.
So this is a prayer then. I mean, a blessing, something we should say.
Yeah.
All of us need to say this.
Yeah, if you come to search for burn the chometz in Salon Chabad, we actually give out papers and we say it. Yeah.
Like, you talking about in the morning?
Yeah.
I've done it many times. I
No,
bought my
you
Lululemon
did?
net truck.
You're very good.
This time I'm in Chicago though, so just so
Okay,
you know.
then you just know that you have to say it.
I'll do it on the bus.
No problem. Yeah, you have to say it. The same day in the morning you have to say it, yes.
Okay.
Now, the moment if you see, there is a certain prayer that we recite for the burning of the chometz, and we give, Chassidus and Kabbalah gives the whole thing a deeper meaning to those burning of the chometz. May it be your will.
May it be your will, Lord our God, the God of our fathers, that just as I remove the chometz from my house and from my possessions, so shall you remove all the extraneous forces. Remove the spirit of impurity from the earth, remove all evil inclination from us, and grant us a heart of flesh to serve you in truth. May all the sitra achra, all the kalipot, and all wickedness be consumed in smoke, and remove the dominion of evil from the earth. Remove with a spirit of destruction and a spirit of judgment all that distress the Shekhinah, just as you destroyed Egypt and its idols in those days at this time. Amen.
Basically, we put on chometz, every bad thing is chometz. And we ask from God, just burn the chometz, just get rid of it. All the evilness that is in the world, let's get rid of it. Now, if you look in the Haggadah, the next thing is the order of the Passover offering. The moment you offer the Passover offering, you were not allowed to have chometz. It's written in the Torah, the way we learn it, the way it's written, Pesach al dam. I don't remember exactly the line, what it means, that you should not offer the sacrifice while there is chometz around. Then before they could start to offer the sacrifice in the early afternoon. Then from that moment, you could not allow to have chometz. From noontime, you're not allowed to have chometz. The rabbi said that another hour, just to make sure we don't another hour from the whatever it is, but another to make it earlier. Then you're not allowed to eat chometz from a little bit before the afternoon, before midday. This year, when is the time not allowed to eat chometz? When is the time of the burning of the chometz? When the last time can burn the chometz? You have your machines.
Yeah, all your time's on.
It's usually around
So you click
10:30.
all the
No,
times.
10:30. It's after 10:30.
Whenever my rabbi tells me I should.
Yeah, here is 10
That's
o'clock.
when you burn it though, right?
There is a certain time until what time you're allowed to eat chometz, and certain time you're allowed to burn chometz. It's not from the morning. I think it's around 10:30 until you're allowed to eat chometz
I'm not
until
going to wait till the
10:30.
last minute, so it's not really important.
For you,
But,
for some people, it's important.
He's
Some
got a
people-
nice little barbecue here. You can come
See,
here
I mean,
and-
say some people
Yeah,
need to eat
yeah,
chometz.
yeah,
You
we
know,
gotta get rid of
erev
it.
Pesach, it's a problem. You
It's a hot
cannot eat.
potato.
You see, the day of Pesach, it's a problem. You cannot eat chometz. You cannot eat matzah. Then you have to starve. I mean, it's like
Apple?
an apple.
Is that a chometz?
No, apple is not chometz. Apple is not food. It's not chometz.
What is it? Or else it's made from?
I like that.
I once met a Jew. He tells me
Okay.
every time there is a saying. Every time when you say kol, you don't eat. You say here we said in Hebrew. We said before kol chamiro. Every chometz. They start with the word kol. That we don't eat after we don't eat before Pesach. The erev Pesach we eat less. We say kol nidrei. You don't eat all day. We say kolchoz. You know what kolchoz is? Kolchoz used to be the kibbutz that used to be in Russia. They put it in the time of the communists. Said there they didn't eat a whole year. He said sometimes you don't eat half a day, sometimes all day, sometimes you don't eat at all. But this prayer actually we say by mincha service before the day. I mean Monday evening. In any case, that's the reason why we don't eat chometz on the erev Pesach because it used to be the Passover sacrifice, and the moment you offer the Passover sacrifice, you're not eating. And more than that, it's written in the Torah, Ach bayom harishon. Ach means like to add something. That even on the first day, it's like before the first day, you're not allowed to eat already. That in the eve of Pesach, we don't eat chometz. That's why you know from the morning. But it's around 10, when you check the times, Go on Chabad and go on Solon Chabad and look. There is a Jewish calendar, and on the Jewish calendar there's the times, and look for March 20 for February 24th, and they will say in the long list they will tell you what's the
February
time.
24th? March.
I mean,
March?
I said March 24th.
Yes,
No, you
March.
said February.
You said
I'm
February.
sorry, March 24th.
That's okay.
What would it be on those
Maybe we
Zmanim?
meant-
Zmanim.
These prayers before the Passover service, you're saying you're doing Mincha or Mariv? You're not doing Mariv.
That's before Mincha. We will do Ma'ariv here too. Yes, around late. You're going in Chicago.
I'm gonna
Then there is
get
no
back
point.
just in time
Or you'll be back in time?
if the bus gets there.
Oh, in Chicago you'll be, not in
Here.
Cleveland. You're
4
coming
o'clock.
back from Chicago for,
Okay.
then
Is
you
that
can come
okay?
here. 8 o'clock we'll have a service. If you want to come,
My
you're more than
sister
welcome.
will. I have to
That's
be
why.
there.
That's why I didn't even tell you.
8 o'clock.
Maybe 7:30. Go ahead.
When is, can you eat matzah like the week before? Like say you just can't wait to get into the box.
It's a problem. It's written. Some have the custom not to eat matzah from Purim, 30 days before. Some have the custom not to eat from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, from today actually. For sure not. As closer you get to Pesach, you're better off not eating matzah. Because the whole idea is to get excited. For sure not the day of Erev Pesach.
You're supposed to be hungry for it.
You have to be excited about the matzah. That's what it's all about. Now we'll go to the Seder plate. We know that you have to light candles. No.
So it's Shabbos candles.
You could probably.
That's it? No.
Shabbos, light
After
candles at
Pesach, right?
7:14.
No.
this Friday.
Go on the
to
Chabad.
town.
I'm there.
Solon Chabad. Where is the Zmanim?
That's what it says.
Oh, here it is.
You got it?
So you have to finish eating the chametz before 11:28.
Here you go.
And use to sell or burn the chametz before 12:30.
Right, here you go.
What?
Very good. That's what I'm saying. I hope it's updated for this year.
And
But
not,
yeah.
and not to forget the firstborn have to fast.
Okay. Now we'll go about the Seder plate. The Seder plate, as we see here, the Chabad Seder plate has 6 things on the Seder plate. The rest of the world has 5 things. We have seen the same thing twice, basically.
It looks like it.
The Shenkbon is to remind us about
The Paschal Lamb.
the Passover lamb. Why we take why we take this little thing? What is it? What is it? You know?
It's the arm, right?
It's a bone of no. I think it's a neck of a
It's a neck, yeah.
of a bird, of a chicken. We take something that is far possible that looks like a sacrifice. That's our custom. Why? To make a point that before that now that we don't have a temple, we don't offer a sacrifice. It's just a reminding of a sacrifice. And chickens you're not allowed to offer as a sacrifice. That's why we take this.
I didn't realize that wasn't a lamb bone.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I know from the picture? What are you asking me?
No, I always thought it was a lamb bone.
There is other customs. I don't say you cannot do. What do you do? What do you take?
We use the chicken bone all
Chicken
the
bone.
time.
Yeah, see, that's a traditional Jew. There's a Chabad guy. You know, that's why. What do you Jews?
A bone.
What do you want?
I
He does know whatever his
Whatever
wife
the
gives
wife
him.
brings back from the butcher.
The funny
It
bone.
depends upon how bad he's been for the year. Could be one of his.
The funny bone.
I want to his finger.
The funny bone.
Then that's to remember the Passover lamb. What's the egg on the left side? Why an egg? Why an egg?
Spring, eternal.
Isn't it because as you boil it, it gets harder?
But why an egg?
Eggs are-
First of all, what is supposed to remember?
It's supposed to be a
What?
sacrificial remembering.
Oh, very good. Which sacrifice is supposed to remind us? Used to
Daily
bring
sacrifice?
Chagiga. Chagiga is a holiday sacrifice. You have to bring a holiday sacrifice. Before the Passover, beside the Passover lamb, it was a holiday sacrifice. You came to the temple, you had to bring a holiday sacrifice 3 times, whenever you came to the temple.
So why an egg for that?
Oh, that's a question. I'm asking you. Why an egg? It's a sacrifice. Why an egg? What? That makes sense, the bone. It looks a little closer to a sacrifice than the egg. Why an egg? You said that the more you boil it, the more it gets harder.
Yeah.
It
because
represents the Jew.
Yeah, that's right.
The Jew.
The more they're
The more
more
they're
suffering.
suffering, the more they become stubborn. That's true. Jews are stubborn. As the generations go further, they become even more stubborn.
I don't know what you're
We
talking
can all
about.
attest to that.
But still, the question is why an egg? When you eat eggs,
In the
When do you
morning.
what?
In the morning.
In it, usually,
Oh, in the service? Like in the service? The salt water?
At the end of
Before-
the
before
beginning
the
of the
Shulchan
service,
Aruch.
you know, I do the first part of
no,
the
no,
service.
no, no. When you eat eggs in other occasions,
Oh.
For morning.
not in the morning, for mourners.
Ah,
Morning,
yes.
right?
It's round. It's oval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we want to take something that we represents that we are mourning the destruction of the temple. That one egg, one is reminding us the temple, and one is reminding us the destruction of the temple. Always there is in Judaism two types of remembrance. There is remembrance that reminds us the destruction of the temple. Tisha B'Av is to remind us the destruction of the temple. The Hillel sandwich, that you're going to speak about that if we make it, if not next class, is to remind us about the destruction of is remind us about what we used to do in the temple. There is in the Jewish law, there is Zecher LaMikdash, remembrance to the temple, and there is Zecher LaChurban, remembrance, commemorating the destruction. And it's a very big difference what you remember. And there is many things lined up. You can line up on two sides. What is to remember the temple? What's to remember the destruction? Here we have an interesting combination. We have one to remember the times of the temple, the bond, so to speak. One is remember the egg, is an egg to remember the destruction, to mourn the destruction of the temple. There is once the Rebbe came to visit the Chabad camp. It was the first Chabad camp. It was a very exciting thing. It was one of two visits that he ever made outside of Karnatz in his 4 years of his leadership. That he went from room to room, and every room they told him, this is this room, this is the dining room, this is the synagogue. Then he came to a room, it was a big mess, that the kids, nobody wanted the Rebbe to go into the room, that they put a sign in outside, Zecher LaChurban. It's a commemoration for the destruction of the temple. Because Jewish people always, there is a Jewish law that says that in many people practice it, that one part in the entrance of the house is not painted. When you walk into the house, top is not painted, to remember the destruction. Then Zecher LaChurban is a very common expression. Whenever you see a mess, they say, what's this? It's Zecher LaChurban. That they put on the sign on the door, Zecher LaChurban. The Rebbe stopped, gave a look, he said, why not remembrance of the temple? Why remembering the destruction? Why not to remember the temple? And it's not just a nice word, it's a whole different way of thinking. Why to remember the bad days? There is in the Jewish world also, some people remember the Holocaust, others remember the world before the Holocaust. There is yeshivas, there is the Telz yeshiva right here, right? It's named of a city in Poland, of a yeshiva in Poland was before the Holocaust. That's another way to remember the Holocaust. It's remember the Jewish world before the Holocaust came about. That some people are concentrating on the Holocaust, other people remembering the good side. It's the negative or the positive. Here we have both of them. We have Zecher LaMikdash and Zecher LaChurban. In the middle, we have the Maror. The Maror is to remember what?
The bitterness of
Bit-
slavery.
The bitterness of slavery. We'll jump ahead and we'll tell you something interesting. During the time of the temple, now there is a few mitzvahs on Pesach. You know, I'm confusing you, but who cares? What's the main mitzvah of the Seder?
To tell.
To tell the story.
That's a biblical mitzvah.
To
What
eat.
are the,
Matzah.
and to eat the matzah. Two biblical mitzvahs. To eat the matzah and to tell the story. What are the rabbinic mitzvahs?
Drink the wine.
Drink 4 cups of wine, it's a rabbinic mitzvah. What else?
Maimonides says more is
Morah, very good. Wow. Morah is a rabbinic mitzvah. In the time of the temple, Morah was a biblical mitzvah. Why it's now Morah a rabbinic mitzvah? Why from the biblical point of view, so to speak, I don't have to eat Morah this year. I mean, during the time of the destruction. Because in exile, we don't need a reminder of bitterness. When life is very good, you need a reminder of bitterness. In exile, we don't need a reminder of bitterness. That's why it's a rabbinic mitzvah. The rabbi said to continue to it. As a way to remember the biblical mitzvahs that were in the time of the temple, that we can renew them when Mashiach comes. And that's the main explanation for all the mitzvahs, that rabbinic mitzvahs that were in one point a biblical mitzvah. We'll not go into all this discussion. But this is a rabbinic mitzvah, to eat to bitterness. Because we have the bitterness of exile, that we don't have to... We have enough bitterness, so to speak. We don't have to look for new one. But still, it's a rabbinic mitzvah, obviously. Now on the bottom right side, we have the charoset. Oh, first of all, the maror. What do you eat for the maror? What everybody eats for? What do you take for bitter herbs?
These
White
horseradish.
Horseradish and what
You can
else?
use
Or-
bitter lettuce,
Or
obviously.
you can use lettuce.
Romaine lettuce. We use horseradish and romaine lettuce. And you eat them. You put the romaine just as you see in the picture. That's how you put it. Then we have the charoset on the bottom right. The charoset is to remind us about the
Mortar?
The mortar.
mortar,
mix.
right? And why we do the charoset from wine and nuts and apples? They
Tastes
all
good.
represent
The blood
they
stain.
represent the Jewish people. The Jewish people are compared to all of the things that are represented. That's why we chose this. Rabbis chose this type of food to make from the charoset to remind us about the beauty of the Jewish people. Every one of them has another compliment to the Jewish people.
So the nuts is hard.
No, the nuts is Iginas, ego is iradity. There is expressions from the Bible that God calls the Jewish people with these words, with these names, compares them to this type of fruit. On the left side, on the bottom, it's the
Onion?
Onion?
we eat our onion.
What?
We take an onion,
What do we eat?
Yeah,
Really?
I've never seen that.
celery.
Seen that either.
We do celery.
Yes.
Yeah, we do celery.
See, the Russian Hasidic Jews try to make it as miserable as possible. What do you mean you enjoy life? Who gave you permission to enjoy life? A little onion will be better for you. The more practical explanation is probably that's the only thing available in Russia. The cheapest thing they can find in Russia was onion. You dip it in the salt water and you eat it. And the whole idea is to eat something strange that the children can ask why. That's the whole idea. That's why we dip it in salt water.
Parsley.
Parsley.
Yeah, the big parsley, whatever.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
what it is, yeah.
Then the second maror is for the second time that we eat maror. We eat it during with the sandwich, with the matzah, right? That's why we have it twice.
What do you mean, the second maror?
We eat once.
Before the
They love
It's not on the
menorah.
plate, though, two of them, is it? Is that what there is?
Yeah.
Oh,
One
maror,
and
maror.
one.
I'm thinking Ross, thank you.
Yeah. Now, inside is 3 matzahs. Why we do 3 matzahs? Why we eat 3 matzahs? That's what it symbolizes. It's true. It symbolizes the three type of Jews: Cohen, Levi, and Israel. But why we eat 3 matzahs?
It's 2 pieces of bread on Shabbos, right?
2 matzahs for the amotzi. You need 2 matzahs, like every Shabbos. And the third one,
It's the one we
Afikomen.
break, right?
for the Chokoma. Then on one end, you have to break the matzah before you say the amotzi. Then that's why the matzah that you broke for the afikoman, you cannot use it anymore for the amotzi. That's why you need another 2 complete matzahs for the amotzi.
So why do we break the middle matzah then?
It is, no?
Because it's all explained. Because the first one you need I think it's also because you need to recite the Agada on a broken piece of matzah. We have to recite the Agada. Matzah. What matzah represents? Why we eat matzah?
Bread of
It's,
affliction.
Bread of affliction. The bread of a poor man is a broken piece of bread. It doesn't even have a complete matzah. That's why we break the matzah. That's one of the reasons we want a broken matzah.
Do we say the blessing though over the top piece of matzah and the middle piece of matzah, or do we do it over the
We
top and bottom?
tap in the bottom and we let it fall a little, loose, and we basically the top and the bottom.
What are you talking, which
Yeah, the
which
top and
piece
the
gets
bottom.
broken?
The middle
Middle
piece,
one.
the
The
middle
middle
one.
one.
Yeah,
Middle
the
one,
top
yeah,
and the
you
bottom. For
take
the
it out.
bracha, you say the top and the bottom. Yeah.
And the other half stays in the middle.
I'm just wondering why we break the middle piece.
Hide the
There's
other
an
half.
explanation. I don't remember the whole. It's a whole calculation.
Yeah.
That you don't want to go all the way to you don't want to why the top part you don't break because you want to leave it for the motzi. Then the second the next one that you meet is the middle. I don't remember what something like this.
I understand why there are 2 pieces of bread for Shabbos, but why are there 2 pieces for the motzi in a holiday like this?
Why not? Why for Shabbos?
Because the 2 pieces is a double portion of manna.
No.
Okay.
And then why should be Pesach different too? We have 2 pieces. We have 2 challahs on Sukkot, on Shavuos. Why? Because at Yom Tov and Shabbos we don't separate. Because it's on Shabbos, it's also on Yom Tov.
Okay.
That's why Pesach also. It's a big discussion if you need to have two pieces of two chales and Yontef. There is a big discussion in Jewish law if you used to get a double portion of manna before Yontef in the desert. The question is, did they celebrate the holidays in the desert? Well, that's a whole big discussion on its own. For example, Sukkot. Did they celebrate Sukkot in the desert? What Sukkot? Why we celebrate Sukkot?
Because it's a commemoration of being under the
Clouds of glory. That when you are under the clouds of glory, when you go out of the clouds of glory, to remember that you were under the clouds of glory? Obviously, it doesn't make sense, right? And for sure, we didn't have a sukkah there, one way or another. Then it's a whole discussion if they celebrate, but the bottom line is you do two chales on Yontef, not to separate between Yontef and Shabbat. That's why you do it. The other explanation for the three matzahs is the three forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
That still doesn't explain why the middle one's broken, though.
No, that's something
It's different explanation.
I think because
Middle child syndrome.
exactly.
Yeah, Isaac was broken.
Isaac
yeah.
was, and you think about that,
He was a broken
he
guy.
was sacrificed as an offering. He was a broken heart. If you were looking for something, somebody who celebrates a broken heart. That's it.
That means the Levies are broken too.
Let's not go
He's a
that
Levi.
far. We don't need to go that far.
It's interesting. The Levi is considered. It's written. There is a verse in the Bible. It says, I said it when? I don't remember where I said what. Okay. There is a passage that says that you have to celebrate an holiday, you and your son and your daughter and your maidservant and your slave. Ato, bincho, bitecho, avdecho, vamosecho. And then he says, Ve'alevi, the Levi, the convert, Ager, the stranger, Ve'ayatom, the orphan, Ve'almana, and the widow. Then Rashi says something very interesting from the Talmud. He says, God tells you, you take care of my four, I'll take care of your four. If you take care of the Levi is a guy who does not have a piece of land. He was basically dependent on charity. The convert or the stranger is a newcomer. He doesn't have anything, doesn't know anybody. The orphan and the widow. If you take care of this four, I'll take care of you four. Your son, your daughter, your maidservant, and your slave. Then it's four for the four. That makes sense that the Levi is as broken as the stranger. Then it goes right there.
Going back to the egg real quickly, the egg is the morning symbol, but why is the egg the morning symbol?
Why in general is an egg a morning symbol? Because it symbolizes a circle
of life.
Yeah, that's one of the explanations. There is other explanations I remember to see, but I forgot. But this is the main explanation. Yeah. You needed something cooked for the to remember the sacrifice.
The cycle of life.
Yeah, the cycle of life. Yes, okay. Yes. Now we'll go to the make Kiddush. Obviously, the Kiddush this year is on page 14. It starts from Bore Priya Gofen, and then you say Shechianu, and you drink the first cup of wine. That's the first of the fourth cup of wine. You drink it while you are reclining. Again, why we recline? We recline because it's an expression of redemption, right? And we want, it's something that the kid should ask, why are you doing it? But a king in the olden days used to recline. The person who leads the Seder has to recline. That's the obligation. The rest of the family doesn't have to recline necessarily. But on the night of Pesach, we are free people, the true free people, the Jewish people. That's why there's a custom, some people have a custom not to lock the door even, because it's considered a little shimurim, a night of protection, a night of freedom. The next thing is urchatz, is to wash your hand before you eat the piece of onion, whatever it is, you dip in water. There used to be the tradition that before you washed your hand, not only before you eat bread, but also before you ate vegetables, wet vegetables, who became wet by water, you wash your hand before you eat them, out of purity. Now we don't practice it, but on the night of Pesach, we want to do something strange. Then to do something strange, we don't get dressed up like Purim. We don't make up things. We take an extra thing that we don't do all year. we reach a higher level of observant on Pesach that we don't do the rest of the year. And this way the kids ask, why are you doing it? The rest of the year you don't do it. But we didn't make up something. It's an extra mitzvah, an extra Jewish law that we do that we used to do in the time of the temple. Then we break the matzah for the afikoman. We break the middle matzah, and we take the bigger piece. We hide it for the afikoman, and the smaller piece we do for this. The custom that we have is to take the bigger piece and to break it into 5 pieces. Because the end is to break the severity of
Gevurah. Of the Gevurah?
Of the Gevurah, exactly. To break the Gevurah. That's why we break the big piece into 5 pieces and we hide it for the afikoman. We wrap it in a handkerchief or in something, and we hide it for the afikoman. And the smaller piece is left inside.
The breaking is for poverty, but why is it that then we hide part of the broken piece?
Then what are you going to hide? Why basically you put away the bigger piece, the piece. You should have the afikoman is the last piece of matzah. You should eat before that's your dessert. Then you need a piece for the dessert.
I guess theoretically you could have 4 pieces of matzah. One for
Why?
the afikoman, one to break to show it's the bread of poverty, and that you're broken, and 2 for the...
What are you going to do with the other piece? You throw it away? In Judaism, everything is exactly as much as you need. Not too much, not too little. And more than the 3 is a number in Judaism. It's always a favorite number, the number 3. Everything is in 3. But that's the way we do it. Now 4 pieces. It's not enough 3 matzahs by the Seder plate. You need another one.
Is that why we kind of redeem the matzah? That's why kids get rewards for finding the afikoman?
Why?
It's the bread of poverty, and they're finding the bread of poverty.
I never heard it. It's interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know. By us, the custom is the kids should not find afikoman. Even that in my house, I don't live by it. My kids find afikoman, but the Chabad custom is not to. The kids, you see, in English they found a nice word for it. The kids find afikoman. In Hebrew, it's called the kids steal the afikoman. Lignovet afikoman. Then stealing the afikoman is not a educational thing. Teaching kids to steal is not a good thing. It was all done for the purpose of that the kids shouldn't fall asleep. But therefore, in America, like every evil thing, they gave it a nice name. That they call it find afikoman. You put your dog to sleep, you don't kill him. And so on and on.
Euphemism.
It's all wrapped in nice words. But really, it's stealing the afikoman. The Chabad custom is not to allow the kids to steal the afikoman. But because it's done, but you want to attach to it that we give them a present because maybe. I don't know. I never heard it. But it's a good commentary that you...
Is giving a present kind of universal?
No. I mean, I promised my kids something very minor. But no, it's not. In my house, we didn't steal that. When I grew up, we didn't steal the afikoman, we didn't get anything. I mean, besides, my father couldn't afford to give anything to anyone, but that's beside the point. No, it's not. I mean, universal. Most of the Jewish people do it, but it's not a Jewish law, not a Jewish custom, nothing close. But it's a good thing because it keeps the kids awake. That's the whole purpose. You want this. The mitzvah, the obligation to tell it to your children, is the main mitzvah of Pesach. Then you have to do everything to make sure that your kids are up and awake, and you can have a discussion with them. And the way the Agada is made is an amazing way. You don't tell your kids. You don't come and give a lecture to your kids. You create things that awake their attention. They ask why. And only after a person is asking why, you can give them an answer. If nobody asks you a question, your explanation will not be remembered. Only when you make them wonder why it comes, then they will remember the answer. And that's when you do strange things, one after the other, and then the kids ask, why are you doing it? That's all 4 questions, as we're coming to it in a minute. Let's read Magid. After you break the matzah and you drink already a cup of wine and you did this and you washed your hand already once, now we really get to the Agada. On page 17, what's the first statement that we make? Okay, Dr. Kosov, from bottom of page 17.
This is the bread of affliction that our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Whoever is hungry, let him come and eat. Whoever is in need, let him come and conduct the Seder of Pesach. This year we are here, next year in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves, next year we will be free people.
Then why we eat the matzah? Can you ever get it to the bottom line? Why we eat matzah? Why we eat matzah? No matter, what do you think? Why Jewish people? Somebody will ask you in your workplace, why we eat matzah?
It's above logic.
No,
To remember.
remember, you're going, you're
Yeah.
flying already. The spiritual
Because as the
We
story
start in the
goes,
bottom, huh?
as the story goes, they had to leave in a hurry. There was no time for the bread to rise,
Beautiful.
become leavened bread, and so we commemorate that. by
Commemorate
eating
it.
matzah.
Yeah, very nice.
And we're Jews, we eat. So.
Then here it's written, that's not the reason. What's written? What you just read? This is the bread of affliction we ate in Egypt.
This is because the first Seder, they have the first Seder before we left.
They ate matzah in the first Seder.
It may not be exactly the same matzah.
That's a good
but-
question.
Ah,
That's a very good question because,
It was a rich matzah.
and I wondered, when did Pharaoh throw us out? After midnight?
after midnight. Much after
All
midnight.
right, so
We left 12 o'clock in the 12:30 in the afternoon.
In the afternoon.
Midday. We actually left.
so the bread was still cooking, or the dough was.
And we
and
didn't
we
have time
took-
to wash.
and we
We
took
took
it
it as
on the run.
matzah. Okay, then that the matzah reminds us about the redemption from Egypt, right?
Right.
Here it says it's a bread of affliction. Then when we eat it, obviously the matzah has two sides to it. That reminds us about affliction while we were in Egypt. Not necessarily on the first night. It's not clear that on the first night when we were sitting in Egypt celebrating the Pesach, that we actually ate matzah. It's a big discussion. Could be that on the first night we did not have matzah. The way it's written in the Bible, God told Moses to tell us about the Passover lamb and the matzah. Moses only told us about the Passover lamb. The matzah is written in the Bible after we left Egypt. Moses said, oh, by the way, you should have matzah because you were rushed out of Egypt. Obviously, from the literal text, on the first night of Pesach, in Egypt, they didn't have matzah. But before that, matzah represents bread of affliction. They did before that. They were not afflicted in the last 6 months. They didn't suffer. They were not poor. They were not afflicted. It's that when we eat matzah on Pesach, we have two things in mind. We have the matzah, it's called the matzah from before midnight, and basically the matzah from affliction and the matzah of redemption. That here we say we eat the matzah because a bread of affliction. If you will turn a few pages and you'll go to page 45, 44, in the bottom of the page, we say this matzah that we eat because for what? For what reason?
Because the dough of our fathers did not have time to become leavened before the King of the Kings of Kings, the Holy One, blessed
Be
be
he.
He, revealed himself to them and redeemed them. Thus it is said, they baked matzah cakes from the dough that they had brought out of Egypt, because it was not leavened, for they had been driven out of Egypt and could not delay. And they-
Exactly. Then here we have the reason from the text. They were not delayed. That's why we eat matzah ever since then, because of this. Then we have two, if you want, contradicting reasons for the matzah. In the beginning of the Seder and later. Because both of them are true. We eat it for the... You can say the broken matzah is remembering the bread of affliction. The complete matzah is to remember the miracles of that we left Egypt before we were rushed out of Egypt. And we had to bake matzah.
Bread of freedom and the bread of affliction.
Exactly.
Bread of redemption.
Beautiful. Bread of redemption and bread of affliction. Now we're going to and we're inviting everybody to come to the Seder. A little late, you know. Anybody who wants to come can come to the Seder, sure. But at least we have to make sure that we participate in somebody else sponsoring of matzah or maro or Seder, or we invite one person to the Seder that doesn't have a Seder. That when we say it, it's real. It's not just words. I mean,
Do we have any other major symbols that are really dual symbols like matzah?
that are, they mean two things.
Yeah,
In Judaism in general, we say.
yeah. Once they jump out at you, I mean,
And now you're asking a very general question. I have to think about every Jewish symbol that we have in Judaism. Yeah, the egg. The egg is like a matzah. And one that it remembers the sacrifice. And the other it remembers the mourning, the destruction of the temple. Right here. The egg is the same thing. Yes. The same flip of the two things. The same idea. Yes. The 4 questions. Who is asking the 4 questions?
The youngest.
The youngest. Oh, they know not to answer it. They learned already. The Jewish law says everybody has to ask a question. Even a man who is 95 years old who's sitting by himself at the table and nobody is there, he has to ask the question. Why? Because the question here is Kabbalah kicks in. The question has much a deeper meaning. In the Hasidic communities, there is a custom to say, maybe many people heard that as they were children. Before you say the question, you say, Tate, ich will bei dir fragen the 4 kashes. Father, I will ask you the 4 questions. You ever heard of such an introduction? You heard of such an introduction?
For you?
For me. You heard it from before?
Right,
For me? Only for me? Okay, I'm sorry. The story goes that once I think the Maggid of Mezrich came to his house and by the Seder, his son didn't say the introduction. Father, I will ask you the 4 questions. It's not, he turned to the teacher who was by the table and says, why? He said, why to? It's enough for him to memorize. How much we have to teach him? Then he told them, you don't understand what the question is. So the question, the conversation is not between a father and a son. It's between us and the Father in heaven. And the question, we turn to God and we ask him, Father, I have a question for you. I have 4 questions for you. What's different this night than any other night? Day and night are represented in Judaism. Good days means good days, good times, and bad, and night is bad times. That's why we say the Shema in the morning and in night. You have to praise God when it's good, and God forbid you have to praise God when it's not good. Day represents time of redemption, time when the Jewish people were in the land of Israel, when things were good. Night represents time of exile. Why is night representing your exile? Because exile, what's exile? A person, we are in the dark. The Jewish people are in the dark. What means a person is in the dark? He doesn't see his way. He cannot, if a person says, I'm in the dark, it doesn't mean that physically in the dark, you cannot see his way. Jewish people are in the dark. At night, you don't see where there is a hole, where there is not a hole. You can fall. You can make the wrong move, the wrong decision, the wrong turn. At night, you're going to sleep. What happens when you're sleeping? Your head and your legs are on the same level. Usually when you stand up, your head is first, then your heart, then your bottom. Everything is in order. In exile, the righteous are in the bottom and the wicked are in top. It's upside down. When you sleep, you dream. What's a dream? A dream is you see things that don't make sense, that things that cannot make sense. A person that lived 200 years ago with a minute, everything goes mixed. In exile, we see things that don't make sense. That the bad people are in top and the good people are in the bottom. And sometimes we have nightmares. The Holocaust is a nightmare. And then what's the question to God? We ask God. There are many exiles we had before. When were we in exile before? When was the first exile?
In Persia, then Babylon, and
The first exile before that even?
Abraham.
In Egypt.
Egypt.
210 years. You're right, it's not the number of 4 exiles that you know. But you were in Egypt for 210 years, and we were gone out. We were between the first temple and the second temple was 70 years, we were done. That we're asking Hashem, why is this night different than another night? Why is this night longer than any other night? That's the question. Now it's a conversation between God and the Jewish people. Then everyone has this conversation. And we are waiting for God to give us an answer. You know what the answer we want from God? We don't want explanations. We want an answer, a real answer, actions. When you pray to God that you want a good living, you don't want an explanation from God, why not? You want, it's going to be later. I want the reality. The same thing is here. Then we have the 4 questions. Then we start with Avodim Moinu. And we say something very powerful in this paragraph. You want to read it? The bottom of page 19?
We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm. If the Holy One, blessed be He, had not taken our fathers out of Egypt, then we, our children, and our children's children would have remained enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Even if all of us were wise, all of us understanding, all of us knowing the Torah, we would still be obligated to discuss the Exodus from Egypt. And everyone who discusses the Exodus from Egypt at length is praiseworthy.
Every day we remember the Exodus. On the night of Pesach, we are obligated to tell the story in detail. And even if you told the story last year, and you told the story 2 years ago, and you know the whole story, you have an obligation to repeat the story. By telling the story, you relive the experience. If you want, speaking about that puts you in that mood. It makes you remember that and reliving it. Thinking about it, saying, "Oh, I know the story." That's not enough. We have to tell the story to ourselves, to everybody who is around us. If we have people around us, and even we are chochems, we have wisdom, we have understanding. If we are knowing everything, we still have to do it. Now comes a story with the 5 rabbis who were sitting in Bnei Brak and making the Seder. These 5 rabbis actually created the Seder, the way we know it today. Until that time, that was right after the destruction of the temple, maybe 50 years after the destruction of the temple, something like this. Right around the Bar Kokhba revolution. Then, until then, the Pesach was more eating the Passover lamb during the temple, telling the story everyone in his own way. Maybe there is one chapter in Psalms to repeat the whole story of the redemption from Egypt, the Exodus from Egypt. Maybe reciting this from this chapter from the book of Psalm, but it was not an organized Seder. These 5 rabbis basically created the Seder, and that evening, that time was a one-time event. And where was it? In Bnei Brak, in my city. You see, everything started right there. Then let's read, was Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. We have every type of Jews there. There was a Kohen, a Levi, an Israelite, and a convert. They were all in Bnei Brak. Rabbi Akiva was a son of converts. I think Rabbi Tarfon was the Kohen, I think. And Lozer ben Azariah, I think, was a Levi. Yeah. And the other ones were Israelites. They were all sitting in Bnei Brak and telling the story. Okay, what they told the story? They were discussing the Exodus of Egypt until the disciples came and told them, our masters came the time. What is this business with the disciples coming and telling them what to do? Huh? Yeah.
It was time.
It was time to get done.
It was time.
But daybreak.
Daybreak, so.
They were like probably just immersed.
Yeah, but when your Rebbe is doing something, when the Rebbe was doing something, we didn't come and tell him, it's time to do this, it's time to do that.
So they got in trouble.
Yeah, it's only in Bnei Brak can happen such a thing. Then what Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah said? You want to read?
Who's reading?
I finished.
Okay, right.
I am like a man of 70 years old, yet I did not succeed in proving that the Exodus from Egypt must be mentioned at night until Ben Zoma explained it. It is said that you may remember the day you left Egypt all the days of your life. Now the days of your life refers to the days. And the additional word all indicates the inclusion of the nights. The sages, however, said the days of your life refer to the present day world. It all indicates the inclusion of all the days.
Even when Moshiach will come, we'll still remember the Exodus of Egypt. But Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah said, I'm like a 70-year-old man. Why he said he was like a 70-year-old man?
Because he's reincarnated from a 50.
Well, why was a 70-year-old man?
He was only
Because
18.
he had the beard.
Why his beard turned white? Yeah.
Because he just become the Nesser.
The leader.
We became the leader. Why became the leader?
Because
Okay.
Oh, the other guy got kicked out.
Why was the other guy kicked
Who was
out?
that, Gamliel?
Gamliel, the other guy. Yeah, Gamliel was kicked out. Rabbi Gamliel was kicked out. Why was Rabbi Gamliel kicked out?
there were some bad
blood?
Oh, the other guy next to him. He didn't honor him. Or
He didn't honor him. Who's the other guy?
Yoshua.
Yeshua, huh? The other guy. Okay, we'll tell you a little bit about the guys. Rabbi Gamliel was the leader of the Jewish people. He was not even in this meeting. Rabbi Gamliel was the leader of the Jewish people. And he was a very strict leader because he believed that everything has to be in order. And there is a story with him with Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua was his second in command, was the head of the Sanhedrin, the Beit Din. And Rabbi Yeshua didn't see things eye and eye with Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was a strict leader. Rabbi Yeshua was a very beloved leader. Rabbi Gamliel was a rich man. Rabbi Yeshua was a very poor man. And they had a few arguments. One of the arguments was, then once it was a discussion, Rabbi Gamliel announced that Rosh Hashanah, at that time, they used to decide when is the new moon, according to the witnesses used to come to Beit Din. Witnesses came to Beit Din, announced they saw the new moon. If it's the new moon today, basically it was the month of the high holidays, Tishrei, and they decided that the new moon, there are high holidays. They said Rosh Hashanah is today. If Rosh Hashanah is today, 10 days from today, it's Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yeshua said we cannot believe the witnesses, they are lying. And he said, if it's not today, it could be only a different of a day. That means it's tomorrow. Means Yom Kippur is a day later. Now, the leader of the Jewish people says Yom Kippur is on Monday. The second in command says Yom Kippur is on Tuesday. You understand that this is a prescription for a disaster. That Rabbi Gamliel sent a message to Rabbi Yeshua. I told him, I want you to come from your city to me on your Yom Kippur with your wallet and on your horse, like to show that you don't have another Yom Kippur. Everybody has the same Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yeshua was depressed by this. He knows Yom Kippur is the next day, and he's forcing him to do. Who saved the day? Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was a young student then, and Rabbi Akiva came and he told Rabbi Yeshua, it's written in the text, it's written that you should call the holidays. The Jewish people, God tells the Jewish people, we should call the holidays. Asher tikru oisom, you should call the holidays. The word otam is without the letter vav. It could be meant atem. You will call it. That Rabbi Akiva says, that means we should call it the Beit Din, whatever the Beit Din decide when Yom Kippur is, God accept it. Even if they made a mistake, even they are deliberately, purposely decided the wrong day. The bottom line is God gave the calendar to the Jewish people. God is the husband. The Jewish people is the wife. God gave the calendar to his wife. The social calendar belongs to the wife. And she decides where you're going and when you're going. Then what he said is, doesn't make a difference really if it's the right day. God is asking, the Medrash puts it in this way, God is asking the heavenly court, when downstairs they decided that Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah are going, I'll sit on the chair of judgment, and I will tell them, and I will judge them. Basically, based on the Jewish people. That when Rabbi Yeshua heard it, he was comforted. He saved his life. He said, you saved me. Because now even if he feels it's the wrong Yom Kippur, but if that's what the Beit Din decided, that was one thing that Rabbi Gamliel forced Rabbi Yeshua. And when Rabbi Yeshua showed up by Rabbi Gamliel stood up and kissed him and told him, you are my student that you listen to me, but you are my teacher by your morals, by your behavior, by your humbleness. That was one story. Then came another story. It was another story, but then the story that the straw that broke the camel's, it was a discussion if the evening service, if Mariv is an obligation or optional. Or it's a voluntary service or you have to daven. Shachis and Minche, morning and afternoon. Oh my God. That's all right. We'll continue next time.
You're letting us hang over here.
Okay, we'll finish the story. I didn't realize it's so late. Then it says, is Mariv optional or an obligation? That was the question. And that's why, until today, we do not do the repetition of the Amidah and the Mariv. Because it still doesn't have the same level of obligation that the Shachis and Mincha, that the morning and afternoon. That's we don't do the repetition in the evening, the night service. Then Rabbi Gamliel says it's an obligation. Rabbi Yeshua holds that it's an optional. That there is a story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a young student, and he went to Rabbi Yeshua and asked him, is this optional or obligation? He said it's optional. He came to Rabbi Gamliel, he says it's obligation. He said Rabbi Yeshua said it's optional. Says, really? Okay. Says, when there is once a week, they used to have a big lecture. Let's come to the lecture and I'll make you ask a question and we'll get to the bottom of it. It was a setup. He came to the lecture, he turns, he says, there is a young student here who has a question. Shimon, Shimon, you have a question? Ask a question. He says, yeah. He says, optional or obligatory? Rabbi Gamliel turns to Rabbi Yeshua and says, no, what do you think? He says it's an obligation. He said, didn't you tell him? He said, yeah. He had to admit that he started the lecture. The custom was he told them, like, when the president walks in, everybody stands up until he tells people to sit down. He didn't tell Rabbi Yeshua to sit down, and he started the lecture. It was a kind of an insult. The crowd started to boo him, Rabbi Gamliel, because people loved Rabbi Yeshua so much they couldn't take the idea that they were insulting him, to a point that you have to interrupt the lecture and go home. The rabbis made a meeting, decided to remove him from leadership. They said, we cannot handle this. They appointed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. There's a whole discussion. They thought to appoint Rabbi Akiva. They said he doesn't have enough merit on his side to protect him. They appointed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who was rich. He was from a very distinguished family and smart. The only problem was he was young. Not the famous joke. They told the rabbi, you're too young. He said, don't worry, this problem gets better every day. Then he went to his wife told him, don't take it, are you crazy? They'll kill you. If they look what they did to the older guy, that his beard turned white. That was a sign that he belongs, that his job, he should accept that's why he said, I'm like a 70-year-old man. Why 70, why not 65? That's what he just mentioned. He was a reincarnation of Samuel the prophet, and Samuel was 52 when he died. That's why and he was 18, it was 70. But I must tell you that to turn white as a leader of the Jewish people doesn't take a miracle.